Hey Clear Lake peeps, Ross England here with Clear Lake Guide Service with a Clear Lake report for March 21st, 2025. Let me say that for the most part, I try to stick to a schedule of Thursdays, but I know I've been really inconsistent and I apologize for that. The whole idea for doing it on Thursday is for you out-of-towners to be able to have a day or two to think about whether you're going to come over the hill, up the hill, across the valley, whatever to get here. And I apologize. Some days I've got a little bit more energy than others, and some days I'm working and just don't get it done. So bear with me. I'll still try to get one out a week and be as useful as possible. So lake level with the recent rains, it's jumped up this week to 795. Really flirted with that 8-foot mark, but it didn't hit it. So it's been kind of holding in steady at 795. Creek behind me is kind of clearing up again. I don't think it's going to hit 8 foot in the next couple of days, but looking ahead, we've got a lot of days that we've got some rain forecasts, so it's going to be really hard to say. What it's going to mean is if it jumps back up to 8 feet again with, it's not going to take much, one good rainstorm with about a quarter to a third of an inch, and the way it sits right now, it'll be at 8 feet. Then we'll be back at that extended idle or no wake zone. Water clarity, considering how much water is coming into the lake, it's really not bad. I'm hearing reports, which I don't like to talk about here, but they're pretty reliable sources. I'm hearing reports of visibility in some areas of the lake, and I think it's down in the redbud arm more than any, where you can see up to 4 feet in some areas. I've spent time this past week, kind of my usual areas, the upper half of the redbud arm, the Narrows, Lakeport, Lucerne, Nice, and it ranges anywhere from 6 to 8 inches, like back in that Swimbait Cove area up by the lagoons. That's pretty muddy up there, to I'm going to say consistently about 1.5 feet. Some areas you can see 2.5 feet. Color is mostly just runoff color, kind of a brownish color, but overall the watercolor's not that bad. And one thing that watercolor does is when you get sunny days like today, sunny afternoons, no matter how cold the morning is, the afternoon water temps bounce up pretty quick. So leading into water temps, I've seen it anywhere from 51 to 52 degrees in the morning, first thing, and then I've seen as high as 56, almost 57 in some areas. I'm sure that if I got into some of the backwater sloughs, some of the back ends of them, I would probably find late in the afternoon on a sunny day 57, 58 degrees, somewhere in that range. The Keys are probably warmer than that. One of the things that popped up was, so anyway, staying with the water temperature, it can vary. It can start out at 51 degrees and end up at 56 this time of year, late in the day, because the days are starting to get longer. And that stained water does heat up if there's sun and no clouds. It's already been documented by other folks, Bob Tyler specifically with his channel, that there's been a shad die-off in the Keys. I'm not an expert on the Keys, but I think I know shad well enough to know that it's probably just due to a water temperature change. We had a spike of really cold mornings where my little outbuildings here, we had some pretty good frosts, so it's probably down to 29 degrees, 30 degrees in the morning. You know, it only takes a couple of days of that kind of nonsense with those little fragile fish, and they just can't handle it. Could be old age with them, who knows? But it's something environmental. It's not all over the lake, and it seems to be just centered in that one area. I'll let Bob speak to that in detail. You can go to his channel, and whatever he knows, I'm sure he's already sharing with you. So I think that covers all that stuff. Tomorrow, which is Saturday the 22nd, there is a BBT on the permit is pulled for that event. And I honestly don't know how many they actually pull. Could be 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 boats. You know, I just don't know. I'm assuming that they're going out of Lakeport somewhere, but it's a one-day event, Saturday. Looking at April weather, you know, these fish generally will start spawning somewhere by the middle of April. If it's warm enough in the Keys, they're probably already doing it or getting really close. But, you know, we're looking at a weather forecast that suggests over the next actually the month of April isn't looking that promising as far as consistency in the weather program. We're looking at first couple days next week of being in the 80s, and then the same week it'll drop down into the 50s with lows in the high 30s again. So it's a real yo-yo deal going on with the weather, which April didn't used to be this mixed up, but it's just something that has started to become. So what I've seen as far as fish are concerned, I've seen some fish that have moved up really, really shallow. People who are, well, I'll just say, people who are fishing outside structure, one day they may get into males, you know, a bunch of small males. The next day, all of a sudden, less fish, but they're females. I kind of saw that in some of the stuff that we've done this week. We didn't have a great week. We had one good day, but because that was fishing with minnows, which I haven't done in a while. And those minnow fish showed me that there were more fish that have already moved up than I was already thinking. So, you know, I think this month is going to continue to be, the bulk of it is going to be a pre-spawn month, which is going to lead towards, you know, fishing the outside stuff, fronts of the Thule lines if you can find them, fronts of docks. Good example, you know, there may be one female sitting on the front of a dock, but there might be 2 or 3 males sitting on the back end of the pier, you know, up shallow. So this is the time of year that definitely the underspin still continues to be a player. Swim baits start to become a little bit more effective. In fact, we caught our first swim bait fish this week on a real swim bait, as opposed to talking about Kitex. The rip bait is going to become a player. Those of you who like to throw an A-rig, the A-rig is going to be in play. There's, Lord only knows, there's plenty of stuff for those of you who like to flip and pitch. Knock yourself out. You know, this lake has become a flipper and pitcher's heaven since the drought. All the stuff that's grown up, which, by the way, speaking of that, when I was up near the mouth of Rodman this week, that was one of the muddiest areas around, was just what was coming out of Rodman Slough. So look for pre-spawn bite. If you're in some super protected areas with the right conditions, you may find, you know, a bedfish, but for the most part, it's still a little bit early for that. You know, I see a lot of, the fishing pressure kind of was a little bit light this week, but a big part of that was the weather was kind of the pits. And it just kind of looks like April is going to be an up and down month, offering more of the same. Looking at the old March adage of in like an lion, out like a lamb. that seems to be moving to more to April. So it's just going to be dicey what happens here. You know, we should be into mid to high 70s. And if that happens, the consistency of the bite's going to improve. It already is improving. I mean, there's several different ways that you can go around the lake and catch fish. They may not be the fish that you think you're going to catch. You know, I know everybody's catching 30-pound bags and everybody's catching 10-pounders, except for everybody who isn't catching 30-pound bags and 10-pounders. So let's just put it this way. You have an excellent chance to have a 30-pound bag, and you've got as good a chance as you ever have had at Clear Lake to be able to pop a big fish, you know, a 9 to 10 pound fish. So it's going to be a really good spring. There's a little bit less tournament activity with New Gen's permits being pulled. But remember, there's always on the weekend, there's club tournaments and, you know, there's kayak events and just people that just travel from out of state. So one of the things you want to do, if you're in any doubt when you pull into an area and want to fish it and there's people there, just ask, you know, give a shout out, say, hey, you mind if I go left? You mind if I go right? And a little hint is, generally speaking, it's always better to go behind somebody than it is to go in front of them. So, and that goes for whether you start 50 yards down the bank and head towards a boat that's headed towards you. You know, it's just always better to be behind somebody. But some of these areas that people are fishing this time of year, there is such a tiny window of a cast. It's not like they're sitting there casting, you know, around the clock. There is a specific lane that they're trying to hit, and they really would appreciate if somebody doesn't run over that lane or pull in and drop the trolling motor right on top of it. So number 1 rule, just ask. Number 2 rule is, if you get into an argument with somebody out there, don't let it ruin your time. We have a sheriff's department up here, and we have a boat patrol. Pick up the phone and call. You know, it's some of the threats that might go on or have gone on or over the top, and just let them deal with it. All you gotta do is get on the phone and say, hey, this is what's going on. So overall, as long as you're staying away from, you know, we'll just call it what it is, the creek mouths, that's where most of the trouble comes out of, is in those areas for the next 4 to 5 weeks. Be polite, ask, don't pull in front of people, pull behind them, don't run over where they're fishing. You know, a reasonable amount of space is 2 cast lengths away with a big bait, but just ask. That's what it all boils down to. Somebody tries to take a whole big area, they can't. Say, okay, which part's the meat that you want to be on, because, you know, I'm going to start over here. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I really didn't want to get into doing, you know, like a 10-minute video just on courtesy, but if enough people are interested, I'll do my best. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can speak from experience. Some of it is just stuff that I've witnessed out there, and some of it is just stupid stuff that I've done because it's stupid because I didn't know any better. Just like a lot of you, not a lot, I shouldn't say it that way. Let's just say for a number of years I was pretty naive, especially on days that a tournament was going on, of getting around, and, you know, I've made many mistakes and I've learned the hard way. So I guess we're going to close that out on this note. So we will post a video next week. Good luck. Hope you're all fishing somewhere.